I think it's definitely a massive concern. It's something like we have a target on our back by just being an MSP, and it's something that MSPs, I think, can sometimes be really, really good at giving out the advice to their clients and telling their clients they need to implement certain security actions. Sometimes they're not so great at implementing that stuff themselves. We would use the term to drink your own champagne. If you're going to suggest something to one of your clients, have you looked at whether or not you're using that or implementing that internally within your own business?
Good to have you here. What we do now is we do a short introduction round to learn a little bit about the diverse backgrounds of our vendors who are represented here on stage, as well as our panelists. Let's start with you, Kyle. What are you doing? What company are you working for? What is your angle for these MSPs in our audience?
Absolutely. So my name is Kyle Tatum, Channel Sales Manager for really the whole Western Hemisphere for Nord Security. 2 products, NordLayer and NordPass. My whole goal, right, is just meeting our new MSP partners, people who may even already be established with us, helping them get off the ground and really get going, selling our products to their end customers, solving complex problems. So couple different things, just meeting MSP partners and then solving their complicated problems.
I know you guys from all my favorite YouTube documentary videos you are sponsoring.
Yeah, we spend a lot of marketing money getting on those videos, so glad you recognize them.
Okay, Kevin, next.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin. I am CISO at Acronis, doing the usual CISO things. I'm responsible for product security, so making Acronis product secure. Responsible for Acronis security as a company. I'm also running a threat research unit recently announced where we are trying to help our customers by looking into most modern threats. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi guys, my name is Jack Cook. I'm a channel development manager at Kaseya. I came actually through the Datto side of the organization, so when Kaseya acquired Datto, I came through that side. I look after sort of industry events. I work across sort of several thousand of our partners in Europe. I also help out with our Australian and APAC partners and our US partners. I help them with their generally go-to-market strategy and how they can sort of scale their cybersecurity offerings to their clients.
Thank you, Jack.
Cool.
Jesse.
Hi there, my name is Jesse. I'm MSP Partner Channel Director at iSecurity. And as iSecurity, we actually fully focus on 24/7 managed XDR and incident response. As a service, focus on the SMB market and mid-market. And we're now 5 years old with around 140 people and still growing. And we mainly focus and help MSPs actually extend their offering into also the 24/7 managed XDR servers.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks to all of you. Let's start with our questions, and we take a very critical subject first, which might be even a subject to fill the whole rest of the afternoon, MSPs getting a target themselves. So that is definitely something we see increasing. Would like anyone to take this out to elaborate a little further?
Yeah. Of course, we have a SOC that actually constantly checks also for, let's say, end customers of MSPs. And beginning of this year, we also saw an incident with an end customer that actually trying to get via that end customer to the MSP. And eventually, if they get to that MSP, they have a bright range there. And that went actually via a remote control tool. And that actually popped up for us with, okay, they all try to get to that nugget, and via that way, they can actually expand in a pretty easy way, as they have the connections via IT. And that's increasing more and more, so therefore we also focus on making sure that the MSP get to the right level that they want to be them.
Mm-hmm. I think as MSPs, we hold the keys to the kingdom for our partners and our clients. Okay, we are, to Jesse's point, like a single source. If they get access to an MSP, they potentially get access to your RMM, to direct access to maybe a password manager. There's so many different ways that if an MSP gets breached, it's not just the MSP's concern, and all of a sudden it's hundreds of their clients concerned as well at the same time. So I think it's definitely a massive concern. It's something like we have a target on our back by just being an MSP, and it's something that MSPs, I think, can sometimes be really, really good at giving out the advice to their clients and telling their clients they need to implement certain security actions. Sometimes they're not so great at implementing that stuff themselves. You know, we would use the term sort of drink your own champagne. If you're going to suggest something to one of your clients, have you looked at whether or not you're using that or implementing that internally within your own business?
Yeah, I think I want to add to that point. So I think MSPs are actually not a target. Instead, they are a means to achieve the attacker's goal. And I totally agree with that, with this opinion that, as a matter of fact, the security at MSPs is often lower than it is at their customers, and people seems to feel that because they are not that important, maybe, is that there is no need to put much effort into security. And I think this is concerning. We are a platform provider, right? So we're seeing both MSPs and their customers, and we definitely also do see situations like that when a customer gets compromised, not because they did something wrong, but because the at MSP level, the protection was not sufficient. And that is, it's actually one of the reasons why we, for example, made 2FA mandatory for MSPs at our platform.
Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has done a really good job of summing it up so far, but just, again, the only other kind of angle I'd suggest to think of it from is I've had MSPs of mine, not only in this role, but in other roles I've had, get breached and then have to explain that to their end customers. The thing that I think a lot of MSPs don't think about is they think first and foremost, okay, how am I going to remediate this issue, this breach, this ransomware attack, whatever it may be? And that's obviously the first line that you should think of it from. But the other piece of it that people don't realize is, are you going to be held liable financially for those, the results of that attack, right? The other piece is not only are you responsible for the remediation of that attack, but now you have to go look at your entire stack and possibly overhaul it, right? Depending on the nature of the breach and things like this. So I think only analyzing it from what impact will this have on my client is one way to think of it, but probably a little short-sighted. Thinking of it about how it's going to impact not just that one customer or series of customers that may get breached, but how it's going to honestly upend your entire MSP practice is a little bit overlooked.
Yeah. By the way, one thing, I encourage everyone, if you've never read about that, I encourage you to Google Operation Cloud Hopper. And have a look how those attacks actually play out in the real life.
Okay, I mean, that's a very good recommendation, because we can be sure about, it will happen again.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it's so intelligent, it's so advanced, there's so much funding behind it to attack through vendors, so it will definitely happen again. That's what we know. So this is a very good recommendation how MSPs can get prepared and understand better what's happening over time.
Yeah. And I guess definitely on that part, it's, of course, having everything in place on the technical end, that's fine, that's a good thing, but you need to be prepared to actually, if something happens. You always need to think about assume breach. So if something is happening, do you have a plan to actually act to that point, to actually be up and running as quick as possible, to make sure that your customers are safe? And that's the end goal, to make your customers safe by making yourself safe.
Yeah, I mean, I would help our partners run cybersecurity tabletop exercises with their clients fairly regularly. And I mean, maybe hijack this for a second, but by a show of hands, can I ask who in the audience has run a cybersecurity tabletop exercise within their own MSP?
Okay, 2 hands, 3,
yeah, 4. 3 or 4. Like, that is something that you guys should be looking to run on a quarterly basis at a minimum. To Jesse's point, like, you need to understand what your own risk is and what your own business continuity plan is for your own organization. You spend all this time preaching this to your clients. But I mean, I've gone and sat in with MSPs who have asked me to run tabletop exercises to their clients. I've said, hey, let's run one with your team first, so everyone knows what it is, and maybe you guys can replicate it afterwards. They then sat down and we've asked about a business continuity plan. The MD is in the corner of this room with smoke coming out of his ears because his 6 senior staff couldn't tell him where the business continuity plan was in the office. And he was there like, you have all seen it today. I promise you, you've all seen it today. It was stapled to the refrigerator. So everyone had gone in and made a cup of coffee in the morning. Everyone had seen the business continuity plan, but they didn't know it was there. And that hadn't also been revised in about a year. So if they were to be a victim of attack, no one really knew what the processes should be. Like, if you aren't aware of what a cybersecurity tabletop exercise is or how you can run one with your business, pull me to the side afterwards. Happy to have a chat, as I imagine most people on the panel are. But it is something that is so critical to understanding what your own threat vectors are. What does it look like? What's critical to your organization? Does everyone within your organization understand how they should react should this happen? I think that's something really critical. We need to understand that and put business continuity plans together for our own organization so we can then look at how that extrapolates out across our clients.
I think it's not should it happen, when it happens.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit up until here about basically the threat, you being a target. Let's talk about your customers being a target and the challenges and opportunities you have in that space. So let's maybe pick something very simple. I'm an MSP and a customer comes up to me and says, what about this IoT stuff? Do I need to secure that? Is that an opportunity, or where is the opportunity for the MSP?
I mean, I think I can say from our perspective, like a lot of partners that we talk to, right, they focus so much, I mean, especially when you're talking about endpoint security, backup, any of those products, those things are staples that they understand that they need from day one. Most MSPs, either from their distributor, their own knowledge, whatever it may be, they immediately, when they start their practice, establish really strong practices on endpoint security, backup, and maybe some other, basic things like email security. What a lot of people don't think about, and where it kind of ties into IoT, is the network piece. If you can get into one device that has access to the network and you have somebody smart enough, this potentially gives you access to the entire network, right? From our perspective, we don't respond to attacks necessarily. We're a preventative measure. So a lot of people overlook the preventative measures that they can put in place to stop this happening in the first place. One of the kind of analogies I use all the time on calls with MSPs, which is kind of corny, but it makes sense, is like an endpoint security product or a backup product, right, is the equivalent of having a guard at your house, right, a security guard that you've hired for your very expensive home. If there's not a fence around that very expensive home, what is the security guard patrolling, right? He's now just basically resigning himself that there's going to be an attack on this place, and now I've just got to respond to something that has no boundaries. So I would say for IoT devices, I mean, the number one exposure is the network, and it comes up for us and Nord every single day. So,
Right. I mentioned it today during the keynote that there are no IoT devices. There are only Linux boxes that never patched. Because the majority of them, this is what they are. And I also mentioned that we recently did a study on the security and exploitability of those devices. And because you usually are dealing with a fairly old Linux kernel and also very old libraries there that are obviously written not in memory-safe languages. The exploitation there is like a piece of cake. So it goes back, like that whole protection level, it goes back to 90s. And that's the first problem. The second problem is, of course, you cannot put endpoint security or backup on this device. It's just not possible. I don't know, maybe raise your hands, how many of you actually have IoT devices or anything like that, old Linux boxes in your customer networks? 1, 2, so interesting, the same people who are doing business continuity plans. So for the rest of the crowd, you guys just don't know that they are there. Like, let me assure you, they are there, and they can be the entry point, because hacking 15 years old Linux box, which this is what they are, is so much easier than hacking even a modern Windows with all patches installed and EDR running in place and all that. It's like really trivial. You will have I don't know, small book with telnet open, and that telnet will have a buffer overrun in the login and the username. And so like all that hacker would need to do is just do like, I don't know, 1,000 A's, put it there as a login, and that's it. And obviously, because this is hard, you have to, and you are dealing with these old school things, I think it's never hurts to actually use the old school protections. So the usual stuff, segment them properly, have network visibility over them, make sure that you control both ingress and egress traffic, things like that. And I think that would help a lot, although definitely we won't eliminate the risk in full.
Okay. Yeah, I think I would add to that as well. Is it comes back to a little bit of being an MSP and being in control of what your clients are bringing into their environment. And as you mentioned about the sort of network segmentation, I'm a big fan of like stories and examples. You know, if you're ever wanting to get the importance of this across to your clients, there was a casino in Vegas that lost $10 million worth of high roller data because someone added a wireless thermometer to their fish tank.
Yeah.
That someone was able to access and move laterally across their network. Mm-hmm. Similar thing happened to a law firm that someone brought in a wireless kettle from home so that when they got within a certain distance of the law firm, the kettle would heat up and they could have their morning coffee that bit quicker. Again, someone used that to gain access to the law firm's network. Like, it's really difficult, but like networks, a bit of old school sort of network segmentation, just locking down what can come on, what can't, what these devices ultimately have access to, or who can bring them in, is really key to trying to limit that threat as much as possible.
Yeah. And especially, I think, definitely as an add-on to what Kyle mentioned, it's like visibility is key. If you have a house, you can put a lock on it, you can put a fence on it. But if you don't have the dog that actually protects your garden, and if you don't have the cameras checking out what's going in the house, they can still come in via every kind of way. But if you have the right points there to actually see them and actually can act to it, then you get to the safe point that you want to be in. But visibility, I guess that's key in everything remaining security there.
Perfect, thank you. So let's talk about a little bit larger of a challenge and opportunity is ransomware. So this is never ending. We can just pick anything from last week. Most likely there's great stories to make documentaries out of. So maybe let's catch some. Let's talk a little bit about ransomware. After that, we talk about social engineering and we make a little experiment with you, how easy you will be to get tricked. But let's start with ransomware. And let's do it like this. Whoever wants to get started with that, what does our MSPs need to know about the latest state of ransomware? Yes, sir, do you want to get started? But we go back around.
Yeah, about ransomware, I guess it's pretty bright in what does a ransomware look like. But I guess there's a combination that you need to have in place to make sure that you actually get ready to a ransomware. There's a lot of things can go on in a company. I guess to make sure to get actually be up and running again is one of the most important points that you have when there is a ransomware. You can shut your company down for a few days, but good luck with it with actually putting everything back again. If you can make sure that bits of the company can actually work again, then you get to the right point. But ransomware still will be there, always be there, but you need to make sure that it won't be you that get attacked, but your neighbor or far neighbor.
I think when it comes to ransomware now, it's like, there's so many different variations, styles, going after different targets. You got ones particularly target cloud environments, some that are still working, self-spread. There's so many different styles of it. It's really easy to track because like the first ransomware attack carried out using floppy disks in 1989, or else was recorded as the first ransomware attack. Like, you can see the scale and evolution of ransomware really easily. Cryptocurrency used in ransomware in 2013 for the first time. WannaCry, self-spreading, 2017. You can see how it's evolved over time. And it's probably going to continue to evolve. Like, no matter what sort of blocks we put in place, there's a good chance that it will continue to evolve around that. So it's business continuity planning, look at how, planning for the worst case scenario, but just being aware of the different types of ransomware that are out there, and it is really hard to police as well, above all. Like, you look at Lockbit, double extortion ransomware, they had their double extortion website. It's really funny, you can go online, you can see the article. The article released on the 22nd of February, held in fact that their double encryption or double extortion website was taken offline by a policing effort. There's another article that came out on the 26th of February saying it's back up again. It was down for 4 days. These are really difficult things to police, but it's about planning. I think it's about planning around it. What is your contingency planning? What is your worst case scenario plan? So that when it happens, it's not worst case scenario.
Okay. I know it might be embarrassing to admit, so let me pose my question to the audience this way. Raise your hands if you know someone who was ransomware. Okay. No, please bear with me. Lower your hand only if they didn't pay. So everybody paid, basically. No, 2 people didn't pay. Okay, somewhat. Some of them paid, some didn't. So, okay, I have a skewed, I must admit that I have a skewed view of that. Because our customers, I do see lots of ransomware cases, lots of them, I think. So one more question maybe before we go into that. What do you think is the median ransom being paid? So because we hear in the news that like 10 million, 20 million, something like, what do you think is the median? Raise your hands if you think it's above 1 million. Okay. Above median. Above 1 million, okay. 100,000? Okay. 50,000? 10,000? Okay. 5,000? All right. 1,000? Okay. So based on the statistics, like, it's not a scientific study, okay? Let me clarify this. But like from what I'm seeing, the median ransom is between 2,000 and 3,000, because the majority of organizations that are being attacked are small and medium businesses.
You can negotiate.
Yeah.
Like a bazaar.
Exactly, and also there's those organizations who don't make it in years. Because what was it? Colonial Pipeline, right?
No.
That was the big one. They
Yes.
demanded by, I don't remember, like 30 million or something?
I don't know. Well, I remember Garmin was 10 million.
Yeah,
COVID.
so whenever there is something, and I don't blame journalists here, but whenever there is something for media to write about, they would write about. Whenever there is a dentist office where 2 people got ransomware, then there's no news, so you don't hear about it. However, in the real life, this is the vast majority of ransomware cases. There's small and medium mom and dad shops, like companies of that caliber. And this is what drives, this is actually what drives the difference between the median and the average. Average ransom probably is going to be much higher than that, because there are those few cases with 10 million or whatever more. And so bear this in mind. The majority of attacks and the majority of targets are small and medium enterprises with the ransom of less than 10 grand.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, honestly, it just kind of got inspired by Kevin's response, but about a week and a half ago, I met with a decent-sized MSP. I mean, I think they maybe had like 700 endpoints, so nothing massive. They brought a end client to the call. On that call, and the end client was maybe 25 users. Their most recent, they had most recently been attacked with a ransomware attack, and it actually was due to the fact that they had switched their infrastructure from on-prem infrastructure to infrastructure as a service, and in doing so, done nothing to secure that infrastructure. In doing so, they got basically, somebody figured out a leaked credential. Their entire server infrastructure in the cloud was shut down within 4 to 5 days of switching, which is pretty quick. But yeah, same thing, 25-person company. I mean, not anything where you're going to get multi-millions of dollars, probably not even hundreds of thousands out of it. So great call out, and yeah, interesting use case as well.
Yeah.
I think what's really interesting about these companies, I think it's overlooked. When I talk about companies, I'm talking about like cyber criminal organizations that are rolling out ransomware. They are so helpful if you want to pay the ransom. Like, it's something that's overlooked. Like, they are super friendly. I just had to spend like 8 hours last week on like the helpline to try sort out my internet. That was a real pain in the ass. You try to call a ransomware company to pay your ransom, they could not be more helpful.
Yeah.
That's how their business functions. They have to be effectively a customer service business, because if they make it difficult for you to pay the ransom, their business falls down. So it's really interesting, and like, I'm not recommending you call these guys. There's plenty of like examples online of people who have called them, and they'll talk about it. Like, I've called one before just to see what the experience was like. They are so helpful, it's unbelievable. It is really interesting to see. But like, they have to be for their business to work. They are ultimately a business, most of these, and they want you to pay that ransom. They want to make that journey as easy as possible. So they try to remove as many blockers as possible, along with, to Kevin's point, making the price point a price point that's easy for you to pay.
Yeah.
They don't want to do something extortionate that you're going to then think twice and think, right, well, maybe I pay someone half that money and they come in and try to clean up my environment. They want you to go, right, well, that's quick and it's easy for me to pay.
Absolutely, yeah. There's always this also, like I do read sometimes those extortion chats, chat logs, and I have to, not that I like that. And they always do this, like if you pay on, like today only, like this is the offer, like 50% discount if you pay within 24 hours. Something like that. It's super helpful. You can call them names, but they still remain professional. And you folks are in MSP business. You know how pissed off people can be, your customers can be when they're talking to support.
So basically what you can take home is that ransom is at average actually cheaper than everyone is expected, and the service is good. So that's maybe the learning.
Maybe this is why they are successful so far. Yes. It's just the only problem with that business is that it's illegal.
But they're intelligent. Like, they're not, I think I like to think most people are inherently optimistic. Okay, and particularly when you're talking to your clients about their cybersecurity budget, they're probably pretty optimistic about what they can get away with. And most of the time you talk to your client about, right, well, you know, what sort of downtime, what's your appetite for downtime? Like, how much time do you think you could be out if you were hit with a ransomware attack? They're inherently going to put it in like best case scenario. And say, okay, well, you know, middle of the month, I haven't really got anything going on, maybe 4 days. These guys aren't looking for best case scenario, they're looking for what is the worst case scenario for you or your clients. When is the worst possible time to hit you? If you're in an accountancy firm, are you just about to pay payroll for your staff and all your client staff? Well, that's probably when you're going to be hit. Are you a manufacturing firm that has just won a massive big contract and you're about to roll out, you know, 6 weeks straight of your machines running? That's probably when they're going to hit you. They'll get in, they'll sit in your system, they'll wait until the most convenient time for them and the least convenient time for you, again, to present a reasonable ransom. They're like, well, I'm about to make $2 million off this contract. Yes, I'll pay $50,000 because that gets me my contract back and I can keep working.
Yeah, and especially we have, of course, also an incident response team constantly seeing these things. And they directly know what that company is about. They know their revenue, yearly revenue. So they actually just ask for maybe 2-3% of the yearly revenue. So every company can actually pay for that ransom. But there is, of course, a lot of other things that need to be paid by that company that you can't actually really easily be calculated. So like reputation, it's getting higher and higher as we actually combine it with an insurance option. But always we also have to have a battle with the insurance. What needs to be insured? And how do you actually put a number on top of it? So it's not only the ransom that needs to be paid, maybe the easiest way to actually get up to speed again, but really getting up to speed, it's for a lot of companies maybe the point that they go and get bankrupt. And especially the smaller companies, as they don't have, let's say, the space to actually pay that money and then go through.
Yeah. Let's do the following. So ransomware and social engineering kind of goes hand in hand in this discussion here right now. In order to switch to this social engineering case, which we would like to discuss, we would like to make a social engineering case on you, on the audience here. And for that, please welcome our official MSP Global mentalist, Avi.
Thank you. So we were talking about social engineering, and people think that, it's a new term. I think the history behind it, previous to this, is a confidence man or a con man. And now a very polished con man is a social engineer. And they use various techniques. I also happen to be a mentalist or a mind reader, so I also try to engineer people socially to arrive at a certain point when I want them to. So I'll just, Kevin?
Okay.
Just be seated, just be seated.
Okay.
I have a cube with me. This is a Rubik's Cube.
Okay.
And it's a 2x2, but it's just a keychain. It doesn't work.
Okay.
And I have different colors on them. Can you see them? This is for the audience. And now I'll give it in Kevin's hand. Kevin, what's the color on top?
It's red.
Red.
Right.
I'm going to look away. But
Okay.
before we do that, I need to ask you 2 quick questions.
Okay.
Butterscotch or chocolate? Ice cream, which one?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Okay. Are you a beach person or a hill person?
Hill.
Hill person.
Hill person.
Okay. So now I just read a little bit about you and your
Okay.
personality.
Okay.
I'm going to look away. He's not going to even show it to his co-panelists. You're going to keep the color that you want on top. So if you like any other
Okay.
color.
Okay.
And then close it.
Okay.
So it just does 2 things. 1, he can show the proof that that's the choice. And 2, it's in your mind. It's just the color that you've seen.
Okay, good.
Okay. So I look
Okay.
away quickly.
Okay. All right, I'm ready.
You done?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to imagine you're in the hills now because you said you're a hill person.
Okay.
Okay, interesting one. This hill is not cold, but it's a regular hill. It's a nice place. It's green. I want you to imagine you're sitting on a bench outside the cabin. That's the picture that's in your mind right now.
Outside the cabin. Okay.
Yeah, outside. And you are wearing flip-flops of this color, the one that you've selected. Can you do that?
Okay.
And I just want you to imagine it like this, yeah? Look into my eyes, and you tell me, you're telling yourself, yellow doesn't go good with the...
It's yellow.
Thank you.
Very impressive.
So it's all about reading people, so be aware all the time. Keep your, ears and, your intellect up. And as you guys were discussing, do not get into complicated situations. So with that, thank you, and I'll leave it back to the panel.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Avi.
Wow.
We had an amazing session at CloudFest this year with the Federal Criminal Police. So we had 5 acts with the audience. It went further. This was only a short piece, what we saw. But I think it's very good to explain it on. He's a mentalist, he's a mind reader. He needs to achieve a certain result, which is this entertainment factor here. And that's actually the same what the good social engineers are doing. They try to find their way into, they try to find the information, they distract you. So what does MSPs need to know? How can they help customers to be more aware about what's going on in social engineering?
I mean, I think it's very difficult because if you're at the point of probably someone's interacting with you and trying to socially engineer you, you're already at pretty high risk. All right, I think we've got to be, this is in our area where we do probably have to be more proactive than anything else, and we've got to get involved with security and awareness training with our clients. Okay, look, there's tons of technology out there that can help with this stuff, okay, but technology is only going to take you so far. Social engineering is actively targeting people above all else. I mean, I worked with an MSP last year. One of their clients was an accountancy firm. Similar, they transfer about £250,000 every month for one of their clients. They had a business email compromise. They didn't know about it. They got an email asking for that transfer. Right time of the month, right amount, everything was right. The accountant picked up the phone and called the client for the first time in 6 months to verify that request, because at the bottom of the email it said please and thank you. In 2.5 years of dealing with that client had never said please. All right, like it's that sort of, those little things that you need to train your staff to be able to pick up on. And ultimately, like, you know, if anyone's got their AI bingo card, right, that's like, this is where we're starting to see maybe AI play a little part in cyber attacks, because if someone had fed those emails that they were looking at through some sort of large language model, there's a good chance that would have spat out a generated email that didn't say please or thank you, because it might have picked up that that's not how that person talked. But you've got to start with training your staff. And this is not just your staff, the staff of your clients. MSPs are constantly asking for new ways, or you know, what's additional revenue that I can get? How can I sell more to my clients? Go sell them security and awareness training.
Yeah.
You guys are experts in this stuff. You see it all the time. Like, go spend a day on site with them, giving them advice on this, giving them directions, not just what the technology is doing, but how their staff need to interact with it to make sure they're best protected.
And especially if you, of course, as an MSP want to sell more services. I guess that's the first point. It's always changing the mind to the right direction. And sometimes you need to make sure that they are aware of the risks, and then they finally have budget to actually cover that risk. It's all about the mind. As you already showed, you can be tricked. Every person can be tricked, but be prepared to that point where we actually get there on the IT. And I guess that already gives you the awareness to eventually get to the point where you can actually sell services, solutions, and so on.
Any tips from your side?
I thought I had a good answer, and now I've spent the last 5 minutes thinking about how we did that, so I'm not 100% sure. Like the best answer I can give kind of plays off of Jack's point. Like, we, in the business, I've heard many times, and you would think it's a one-off incident, but it's, I feel like almost monthly, some partner coming to me and telling me that someone got an email and that person asked for every social security number of every employee in the company, or just asked for a transfer of $200,000, and the email looked legit, so someone sent it. I mean, it's not even as impressive as what we just saw on the stage, right? It's things that like my 12-year-old daughter could pull off. I would say just, again, remaining hyper-vigilant, training staff, and I don't know, just making sure people don't make stupid mistakes. And I know that sounds very, very baseline, but it really does come down to that. I mean, again, nothing as impressive as what I just saw on the stage, and it happens every day and costs people hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I agree. I sometimes see cases when, like, look at the aftermath, and how possibly people could be that.
And especially in the age of AI nowadays. At the social engineering panel, which I was referring to at CloudFest, we had the CEO of Jonas, one of the largest hosting companies in the world. And he was saying, actually on stage, the email I get from the social engineering team is better and more professional from my bank, So how am I able to differentiate what is right or wrong?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the awareness, but I think it's important for MSPs, how to explain that, how to increase the awareness, and maybe things like a mentalist are good because you can physically see how it's working,
You've really got to stay on top of it with your clients as an MSP. this is not a one and done type scenario, right? Like it is designing a program that keeps it front of mind, whether, what some training with them looks like, having some sort of scenario where you are actively trying to phish them, and then, every time they pass, then maybe the gap gets a little bit longer before the next phish test, but every time they fail, it resets them back to square one, and then they get a phishing email every 2-3 days after that. Like, this is something that you have to keep hammering into people, because, we've all probably been guilty of it at some stage where you've got sent some training, you've sort of dozily clicked your way through it, and then got to the end, been like, oh yeah, cool. Right, I'll see that again in 6 months' time. If you're not keeping it front of mind, it's really difficult to ingrain these ideas in your clients. And again, by keeping it front of mind, it helps you as an MSP with everything else you do. Because all of a sudden, these clients are becoming more and more aware of the security threats, because you're training them on them all the time. People think, if I go train my client on that, they won't need me anymore. They will need you more because they will start to appreciate what the threats are that you're protecting them from. To your point as well, of where we're seeing AI start to, again, bingo card, AI, see it play a part in this. We probably don't have time to talk about it here, but if you want to see something really interesting about social engineering and AI, go Google Hong Kong firm, design firm, CFO, deepfake. The firm taken for $25 million because someone was able to impersonate on a Teams call with 10 other people on it and design a deepfake. So tons of articles out there, go read about it. That is the top end stuff, but for the vast part, they don't have to go that high end. People are falling for the simple stuff. So it's scary and it's concerning.
Okay. Let's do the following. We have a couple of viewpoints here. We take them home. The representatives of here on stage of these companies, you're all having booths outside. So anyone interested, they can talk to you or to your colleagues along the booths. Tomorrow morning, we have this amazing keynote at 9:35, 9:40 with Karen Nelasari. This will be amazing. I don't say too much, but regardless how long the night is going to be, you try to be there tomorrow morning. It's definitely a must. So, yeah. So thanks a lot. That was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we see each other later. Thanks a lot.
Thanks
See you
for having
guys
me.
around.